Hello, kia ora, and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with artists from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm your host, Mandy Jakic. Hello and welcome back to the Creative Matters podcast. Thank you very much for joining me. I am speaking today with Levi Hawken. Levi is a brutalist modernist sculptor living and working in West Auckland. His practice includes sculpture in concrete, glass, wood and bronze, as well as painting. As a skateboarder, Levi understands the undeniable attraction of the urban concrete landscape. His work responds to the forms and elements of this environment. In this very authentic conversation, Levi takes us through his extraordinary life, from early graffiti days and his world of skating to his appearances on TV and in film, and the Nek Minute meme that made him famous, although not necessarily for all the right reasons. Levi speaks from the heart about experiences in his life that have affected the person he is, the way he works today, and the art he makes. We talk about his current work, The False Idols, and the Solv series, and how his work is inextricably intertwined with skateboarding and urban forms. Levi describes the idea behind his work and his process for making, and how he feels about showcasing his work in a more commercial environment. This is an amazing story which will inspire young and old, giving you a true insight into the person and artist that is Levi Hawken. Hi, Levi.
Hi, Mandy.
Lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the podcast. It's really exciting to have you here, and we met very briefly last night at an opening at Black Door Gallery. So that was nice to kind of, cross paths before we actually meet to have a chat. So thank you very much for coming all the way out to Muriwai with your lovely dog, Lemmy. Is it Lemmy?
Lemmy, yeah.
Yeah. Very excited to hear your story. You were born in 1975 in Auckland.
Yes.
Yeah. What were you like as a child? The big question.
Well, I was born in Glen Innes, but then we moved to the Waitakere. So I spent my first few years sort of out near Bethel's and spent a lot of time at the beach. And then we moved to Herne Bay, sort of like the Greyland side, which was a bit more multicultural.
That area has changed a lot, hasn't it, in those years?
It's changed a huge amount. As a small kid, we were just surrounded by artists and musicians and things. Like the artist Derek Cowie lived across the road, and so he used to do I had a drawing of my little plastic trike and stuff that he'd drawn, like a real life one, and
wow.
And he also made this pole, a wooden pole that was painted with spirals, and when you'd spin it, that'll go to the center.
Yeah.
And so it was an amazing place to grow up. I went to Bayfield Primary. We did a lot of art. I remember making my first masks. I've still got a clay mask that I made when I was 6, and it's kind of amazing looking at something like that and just going, what was I thinking? How did I,
Yeah. And the fact that it is kind of connected to what you're doing now.
Yeah, totally. And so, and then Ponsonby Intermediate, and and then I traveled to Selwyn because I heard that they had a good art department, and you're also allowed to skate at school.
Oh, really? That would have been a big factor, I imagine.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah. So how did you find art at high school?
Well, it was cool. I was really lucky to have Angela Fraser as a teacher, and so we did a lot of printmaking, and she taught us a lot about we did Māori art. We go to the museum and draw tikis and po and stuff, and there was a I remember her teaching us to like, you know, you start with a sketch and then you can keep going over it and over it and over it. And like even a drawing that you think's bad, like you can keep going over it. And then also sort of like you can scrape it back as well and go back into it, which were things that I definitely explored in my painting. Solv was really good. Like in the photography department was good. So I did painting, photography, art history, like right up till I was there till 7th form, and
tech drawing.
Tech drawing, yeah. Tech drawing was good, but I think you know, like when you fail at something, like not fail, but like I remember they had like in tech drawing they had like a logo competition, and I always thought of myself as like a logo designer. Like that was kind of like what I wanted to do, and they had like a competition for like Cook's Plumbing or something, and everyone in the class came up with, you know, their logos or whatever, and I just remember like losing it, and like this real geeky dude, like real straight dude, kind of like he won it, and I think like they still use his logo today.
Really?
And yeah, and so I think that kind of, I don't know, like I was very easily discouraged, and I think like even getting like only getting 48% for painting in 7th form, like kind of crushed me a little bit. And I think that really sort of like pushed me away. Like I sort of like, I steered away from the from like schools and, you know, institutions. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. And I can imagine, you know, it is so sad to me that something like that, which is judged by a whole bunch of whoever's, you know, can influence where you end up going in your life, you know, just from something like that. It can be so discouraging for school kids.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, and I think for me, like I was, because like I grew up so close to the city and got into skateboarding, and there was no skate parks, so I would skate to the city, and we had no money. So yeah, I'd skate to the city, skate in the city at Aotea Square on Terry Stringer's monument, and we'd go to you know, like the university, which is all brutalist buildings, and the med school, which is just an amazing brutalist building. I mean, they've re-landscaped it now, but skateboarding really changed. There was this really strong fashion in the clothing, like really baggy clothes, and there was a lot of folds and things, and sort of chunky shoes with fat laces, and which also corresponded with like graffiti characters, and they were really sort of like chunky, and cause I like drawing people and stuff, and so for my final year I drew I did all these drawings with sort of like faceless sort of figures, sort of like August Macke, the German expressionist, and similar colors, because I was heavily inspired by them, and so all my drawings were of like skateboarders hanging out at Aotea Square, and it had sort of like the buildings in the background, like, and sort of emotions, I guess, like it was really, skateboarding wasn't cool anymore, and so you were kind of an outcast, and so you'd hang out in the city, and it was often like in winter I'd be skating at Aotea Square by myself, you know, or there'd be like a few other people, and so I sort of did all these drawings of that, and paintings, and I didn't have like maybe the technical skills, which didn't work out great,
but at least you were telling your story, which not all students were.
And I didn't know how to explain it, I don't think, at the time, like just not being like, I've always sort of been a little bit sort of ADD, sort of not very creative, but just not the best at like English, and but so yeah, I sort of did all these drawings, and there was so much feeling in them, and so much like it was so important to me, and it was sort of like our subculture that was so new and evolving, and I think like it was an insult to me to only get
And it was such a personal thing that you were responding to.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when school finished, it was sort of like, and to be honest, like my dad wanted me to go to art school, and my mum, who's very practical, she was like, why do you want to spend all that money going to art school? You know, like you'll have a degree and you'll have a student debt and you still won't be able to get a job. And so I sort of was like, okay, so I just sort of, I went overseas for 6 months to Australia and just traveled around and just kind of went out there in the world and had never flattered before or anything, and never really I'd had jobs, but not like I'd never had to look in the newspaper to get a job. It had always been through someone. So I think that was like a really cool, like going to Melbourne in '94 and seeing their train lines was just kind of mind blowing. Like it's sort of like Australia's New York, you know. Because when I was doing art at school, like with the skateboarding culture and hip hop, all the graphics and things and all the clothes and boards had become very graffiti and hip hop orientated. So I'd sort of gotten into doing that and drawing all the lettering and, but I didn't really sort of see myself going out and doing it. But then when I came back from Australia after seeing it all over there, and then coming back to New Zealand and sort of seeing that there was, I don't think I'd been looking hard before, but I started like, you know, looking on the train lines and looking, and then I was like discovering that it was happening here too. And there were a lot of guys like R&B and Merkster and who were just doing like really amazing pieces, and I just went, oh wow, like, and also like there was different sorts of spray paint that had more control, and you know, you'd see like, instead of just seeing like tags on the street that were sort of hairy black cans, VHTs or something from the garage, they were like getting expensive shoe paint, and with nice caps that sort of, the line would come out in like a translucent tube, and so the lettering would be like sort of three-dimensional spaghetti, you know, and which was just like, you know, it was easy enough to just fall in love with that as a tool, like as a aesthetic, and so I think that's where I started just going, oh, you know, if I'm not going to art school, and you know, and high school didn't appreciate what I was doing, I'm just gonna go the opposite way, and so I started doing pieces, and
was the graffiti sort of what do you call it when it's illegal sort of graffiti on walls at that point?
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
is how so many graffiti artists start, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, like I guess like if there'd been laws back in the day, like cavemen would have been doing illegal graffiti in caves.
Yeah, true. That's so true.
It's quite a funny context when you think about it, because like it is just lettering, and it's language, and it's hieroglyph. It's kind of like, I find it hard when people get stuck in the context of, you know, graffiti looking a certain way, and so I, you know, and that's something that I really, when I started doing graffiti, I was already like, I just wanted to try and do abstract, like my own unique style. So it came out really ugly.
Really?
Well, because it's so much. I mean, you can draw some lettering or something on a page. It's very easy, but you try and draw it like the height of you on a wall with a spray can, which is, you know, like it's
a whole new technique, isn't it?
Well, there was a lot of techniques. So I mean, it was,
and you're teaching yourself on the streets, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I went in, I started doing that, and I sort of did that, and I was always sort of trying to emulate sort of New York style, wild style graffiti, and there was a guy called Giant, who was sort of did a lot, was largely in San Francisco, and I loved his work, and so I was sort of trying to emulate that, and plus like, you know, the local guys like Merkster and R&B, and it was kind of cool back then because it was so hard to find like the magazines, or like, you know, it's like you'd get a magazine, like every time the Source magazine would come out, it had one page of graffiti, and that was like your only connection to the outside, you know, that and like the Subway art book from the 80s. So it allowed us a lot of freedom to make up our own stuff rather than copying a subculture completely.
Yeah.
And so that was super fun. And then I actually got a job for a summer working for a sign company, because I was sort of trying to find where what I was going to do for work, you know. And we installed they changed the font on the Air New Zealand building downtown. And so I was lucky enough to go up on that, and so I was working on top of a 27-story building in, I think, 1996, and carrying these massive letters up and down stairs, like these big sort of aluminium powder-coated letters. And I also spent like time stripping all the fittings off the old font, which was that cool sort of 70s teal green.
Yes, yeah, I remember.
And they were huge. So, I mean, it was like, so then I actually, because I was always trying to be quite abstract and stuff, I actually went back to really basic letter forms and started doing these sort of logo style things, pieces that my friend called the Crayola style, because it looked like it was on the side of a Crayola crayon, just very sort of circular and lines and stuff. And so I sort of like took it back to that, and then did a whole bunch of that, and then brought the abstraction back in. And then I started getting all these like cool sort of rectangles and curves and really sort of interlocking the forms. And I wasn't super into drawing things in 3D, but I liked the way that if you had one piece that was one color and then another piece, like if you had a yellow and then an orange going behind another color, it almost suggested that the yellow became orange after it had gone through that color.
Yeah.
And so I really sort of, I don't know, I think that really got my brain working, and things sort of started to click together a lot more.
Were you taking those ideas and those designs onto the street at that stage?
Yeah. I was kind of a good kid. Like I didn't do a lot of, I wasn't like a hard out criminal or anything. But I really liked the train lines, because the train lines, it kind of felt like you're just going over tags, and it was so cool, like back in the 90s, because the trains didn't run on Sundays, and you know, like springtime on the train tracks, you know, like walking up through Parnell, Newmarket, like, and also like the city was going through a change of from like factories, all the factories in the inner areas were disappearing. Like you had like the flour factory in Fort Street, you had the margarine factory in Newmarket, the courthouse, which is the metropolis now, you know, like,
yeah,
there were a lot of these sort of like playgrounds that were just like these abandoned playgrounds that we'd go exploring. And, you know, but like springtime on the train tracks, there was like, you know, sweet peas and, you know, nasturtiums and all these beautiful flowers. And then there was sort of like pieces, and sometimes the colors would like, you do a piece and then realize that they match the flowers. Like,
yeah, that's so cool.
So, I mean, so it was that was quite a fun time. And so I really evolved, but I kind of started going off spray paint. Like I like the idea of, everything that you used was kind of what you found. Like, so I started using a lot of like recycled house paint and stuff. And I didn't like the fumes from spray paint, and it seemed really wasteful, you know, like it just seemed like they manufacture this thing, and it just seemed a lot more wasteful than making like a tin of paint.
Yeah.
It didn't go as far, and so, and I also, I don't know, like I said, like I think it was like when I started getting into like those more simpler forms after doing the sign stuff, that I sort of went, wow, you know, like I don't want my stuff to look like New York wild style, you know, like I want it to look like my style. And so then I started getting house paint and stuff, and using paintbrushes and mini rollers, and started sort of blocking out quite large areas of wall, and also just trying to like go bigger and get more coverage, and
sort of refining your technique, do you think?
Yeah, and it's sort of like, it sort of started looking more rustic and more like a painting than graffiti.
And those jobs were still sort of undercover, like they weren't actually paid jobs at that stage?
No, I mean, there were a certain amount of walls around the city, like the top of Simon Street, like around that area, there was a lot of walls, and like I said, there was a lot of abandoned buildings that were just waiting to be knocked down. So I mean, you were like, it was kind of cool, like you'd go into a abandoned building and paint a wall in a room that only someone who went in there exploring would find.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like a treasure hunt, you know? And
it's so different in those days without Instagram, and, you know, you're not recording that in the same way that you might now.
No, well, I mean, there's some of our best stuff, like we didn't even have cameras, you know, like it would be like, or someone else might have a camera, or, you know, went through a lot of disposable cameras, and so, yeah, like a lot of it's just kind of lost to, whereas now, like, it's instantly done.
Yeah, it's recorded. And were you working with a bit of a group or like a bit of a team at that stage?
Yeah, well, I mean, I had other people that I was doing it with, but my style often didn't fit with other people's, because their stuff would be more sort of graffiti style, and then my stuff would be sort of blocky, sort of cubist style.
More geometric.
Yeah, and which I also found very hard with spray paint, was doing, if I was trying to do like straight parallel lines, or, you know, like perfect big curves, like a semicircle or something, like a quarter circle, I found it really hard with spray paint. Whereas like with a paintbrush, I could kind of, I could do it a lot more easily. But we kind of thought you kind of like, you weren't allowed to measure things out, and everything had to be like eyeballed and done first time with a spray can. And, you know, it was very sort of like, there were like rules, you know, like you had to have good can control, and you weren't allowed to mask anything. And like, we didn't realize that all these people were masking things, and all these guys that we looked up to, because like I said, we didn't have any connection to overseas writers. And there were, a writer is a graffiti artist, because they write their name usually. So yeah, we'd kind of made up all these rules, and like, you know, you weren't allowed to copy anyone, and, you know, which was very hard because you put so much pressure on yourself. And we didn't realize that you could be influenced. You're allowed to be influenced by people, and you're allowed to emulate what they were doing or try what they were doing and then do your own twist on it, you know?
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it? And then I guess, you know, at that stage you had your skateboarding, you were skating a lot, and that was, I guess, running alongside your art making. Were you thinking, I want to be an artist, like I'm on my way to eventually becoming an artist, or did you think of yourself as an artist as soon as you started making?
No, I mean, in high school, I also, with the whole skate fashion, it was hard to get baggy jeans, and my mum sewed and sold clothes at Cook Street Market back in the day, and so she taught me to sew, and so I started making my own jeans. And so I sort of like came up with my own little label and never did anything with it. But it was like I wanted to create a skate brand or a clothing brand. And so I kind of like, I mean, I ended up, but I was also so driven by skateboarding. That was my thing. So it was like I would wash dishes or paint houses or do whatever job that I could, which kind of didn't. All my thought and creativity was directed into skateboarding and painting, and so it was kind of like that. Just facilitated, and also facilitated going back to Melbourne and going and skating over there, and seeing the art over there, and like there was some really influential like artists over there, like a guy called Murder, who is like arguably the first person to do three-dimensional graffiti, which was graffiti that actually looked sculptural on a wall. So he was a huge influence on me, and so I mean, I was just doing that, and then I wanted to work because I skated for Boom Skateboards, which was owned by Frank Edwards from Edwards Skateboards and Cheapskates from back in the day, because I worked in skate shops like growing, like in my teen years. And then...
Were they sponsoring you as a skater?
Yeah, well, they did eventually, but I wasn't actually good enough. And so I just hassled them and hung out there every weekend and after school and was serving customers until they gave in and gave me a job. and then I wanted to be on the team so bad, but I wasn't good enough. And then I got fourth in the open street at the Nationals when I was 15. And so I started getting free stuff so I was sort of like working at Cheapskates a little bit out the back. Like they wouldn't give me a job like in the actual store. Like I worked at Blue Tile Lounge before that, which was down the road, but that was a bit more alternative. And so it was kind of like, but I kind of felt like it was a bit too straight-laced and I was a bit too sort of like, I don't know, unusual or something, I don't know, to work serving customers. So I kind of felt like I got kind of like pushed out the back, like putting together rollerblades and skateboards. And then Boom Skateboards started, which was the 90s sort of hip-hop graffiti inspired version of Edwards Skateboards. And of course, I mean, my dream was to design clothes and graphics for them. And but I kept so I went back to Melbourne in 97 and was sort of back and forth and skateboarding and washing dishes and painting and then in 1999, I think two of the guys from Boom quit, like the main guys, and I got offered the position of doing graphics and the clothing designs.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I mean, I kind of got thrown in the deep end. I had like 1 week with the guy who was doing it before, and like I'd never used Illustrator before or Photoshop or I was all just sort of hands-on. And and so I sort of it was ridiculous really, like
but that was your dream, wasn't it? That's what you were hoping for.
That was my dream, and it was like and so like over the next few years I sort of I learned how to produce clothing, like spec sheets and using Illustrator and all that, and so I kind of fulfilled that dream, but but it was very limiting, like because like when they first started, it was kind of cool because because skateboarding had been so dead. and it was so new, the style of skateboarding. Boom was like the only New Zealand company. But then everyone who left Boom started their own companies, you know? And so, and then you also had all these other American companies started making things under license in other countries. So there was all this cheap product coming in, which had all this labeling, like it was made in China. So it just had all the finishing, labeling, tags, everything. And for us to make a pair of jeans that had like original labels and rivets and all that stuff was, it would cost so much money.
Expensive, yeah.
Yeah. And so you were there were all these restrictions. And then there was also like, you know, the boss would be coming in and going, oh, you know, like, oh, no. I'd be like, I was really into workwear, you know, like, and to me, workwear and army clothes and hunting gear is where streetwear, sort of skateboard streetwear came from. And so I was sort of on that thing. And then it was like, oh no, like it's tight jeans and skulls are trendy now. So we have to do that. We have to copy Billabong. And we were always sort of like, it always felt like my boss was, if you're copying another brand, you're a year behind, you know? And so you kind of need to be ahead. So but I stayed with like working for Frank and Boom and Cheapskates and, you know, like, yeah, I managed skate shops.
At that point, were you thinking, okay, this is kind of good, this is what I was hoping for alongside my skating? What were you thinking with your art practice?
Well, I mean, the art practice was, I don't know, it was just kind of like there on the side. Like it was just something that I just loved doing it. And it was kind of, and I liked the fact that there were no rules. And I think that was what really appealed to me after school, was the fact that like painting walls and stuff, there were no rules. Like you could just kind of do whatever you wanted. And whenever I sort of started being confronted by like I said, there were like rules in graffiti, and then it was like, okay, well, I'm going to break these. Yeah. Like these are not, I'm not going to, you know? And so yeah, it just sort of kept going like that. And then, I mean, there were times when I would skate more, and there's times when I would paint more, and there was, you know, but then, yeah, and then I just sort of got burnt out on the whole skateboard industry, also the politics. And like, it's very, when you're in New Zealand, you've got a small population, you've got a small market. And so people end up trying to cut each other off. And when that comes into skateboarding as well, it kind of ruins the fun. And so I went back to Melbourne, and I'd created a new style, because I stopped writing my old tag, and I started writing my name, Levi, because I was like, it's me, it's who I am, and I liked the fact that it was 4 letters, and I liked the shape of the letters because they were a little bit more geometric than my other letters that I'd been using. And so, yeah, and then I sort of I came up with this idea of each letter saying Levi as well. So I was sort of cutting up each letter so it had all 4 letters in it. I called it a 5 style. So it was like, it said my name 5 times. And so, yeah, and so that really sort of, and that was when I sort of learned, I was like, oh, wow, like it's like an algorithm, or it's like a, you know, like a reason for abstracting something, or like a program. And so when I went to Melbourne, I started doing that. And then I met like Murder, and started hanging out with him a little bit and talking with him about stuff. And I was like, oh, as I said, I love your 3D stuff. I want to do it, but I don't want to do what you're doing. You know, like I don't want to copy. I said, I'm going to make up my own style of 3D. And then I think that kind of set me on a new path. Yeah. But, and from there I went to London and was there for 6 months and worked in a bar in Shoreditch. which was where Banksy and Ein Signs and I met like Mode 2 and only once, and I didn't meet Banksy or anything, but I knew that he was around.
You might have met him, but
I might have
didn't know.
met him. Yeah. Apparently my cousin was going out with him, but she wouldn't.
Oh, really?
She wouldn't tell me anything.
Wow.
But yeah, so I sort of, in London, like, I mean, to survive there, it's like you spend the whole time working, you know? And, I mean, I wasn't working actually. But yeah, and I went to Italy, I went to Florence, and because my dad had always said that I had to go to Florence and see Brunelleschi's Santa Maria del Fiore, the Duomo. So I went there by myself and just kind of wandered around Florence, just going up into the hills, up to the Fort Belvedere and the Buffable Gardens, and there was like the big sculptures there, and I just spent like 5 days kind of by myself, just thinking and exploring and
feeling inspired.
Yeah, and then I went back to go back to London, and they wouldn't let me in, so I got sent back to New Zealand, and which I was kind of relieved about, because London is just so exhausting, and it just kind of feels like it's the last place you'd want to be if anything went down.
Yeah, so true. And getting back to New Zealand, I mean, when you're away from New Zealand, it just feels like such a paradise, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. And I also, I mean, I'd started doing a lot of labouring jobs, like for events companies, and then coming back to New Zealand, I sort of I didn't know what to do, so I needed money, so my brother-in-law was landscaping, so he got me a job landscaping. So I started doing that, and then I was still painting and on the side and skating, and I'd also I started what's around then? I don't know. I'd started getting really into skating down hills, because after living places where there were no hills, like Melbourne and London, I just was like, oh my God, I'm home. Like, I'm going to go bomb Queen Street, you know, like,
yeah.
And so I started really getting back into that, and also I was getting older, and I was just finding it, everyone was into filming tricks, and they'd sit around for hours waiting for someone to land something, and I was like, I just want to skate. I just want to go, you know? So yes, I was getting into that, and working hard, and you know, and I'd always like sitting at Aotea Square, I'd always imagine skate parks being like Aotea Square, like a landscaped space with sculpture and stuff that you could interact with, and so when I was getting into when I was landscaping, I was sort of like thinking about, you know, spaces and how you can take a space that doesn't work and turn it into a space that does work. And so you know, I always sort of had dreams and ideas, but just didn't really know how to implement them or how to start. And I didn't realize that I was actually starting. And so yeah, I landscaped for a while, and then I house painted for a while, and because I'd house painted before, and like house painting was great because I was getting access to all this old paint. Like this guy I worked with painted the inside of like the Pelican Club. Like, if those people don't know, it's a brothel in Newton, and he had all these bright colors, and like, so I got all these bright colored paintings, and that was bright colored paint, and some quite sort of earthy colors too, like, you know, ochre yellows and sort of like burgundy reds and then so I was getting pastels as well. So I started, and that was when I first like built some big frames and stretched some canvas, and I did these big paintings, and it was all with like leftover house paint and paint from the Pelican Club. So,
amazing. You could have got some good titles out of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, so that was like that was quite a cool period. And then with the getting into skating hills and stuff, and then I worked for my stepdad was a carpenter, so when I was growing up, always worked on building sites, like cleaning up. And so I went and worked for him for a bit. And then I went down to Dunedin for I had a Halloween skate event called Halloween, where everyone gets dressed up and skates down hills. And I fell in love with the place and just the hills and the old buildings. And I felt like Auckland had kind of, all the abandoned buildings have been knocked down, and it was all this ugly new stuff had been built, and they'd painted everything grey when like they had the Apex Summit, like they cleaned up everything, and it just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of felt like, they also at that time they demolished Aotea Square, which was kind of like my love,
Yeah, such a shame. And then I guess they also started all that, making it inaccessible for skaters to skate around the city.
Yeah. Well, they, that had already been happening for quite a bit of time. And then there was an initiative to incorporate skateboarding into the new architecture. They had like an Auckland skate strategy, which was quite interesting, but the sentiment was there, but it was very hard for the councillors to get their idea around creating architecture that was actually
Suitable.
Intended to be skated as well. Because I used to skate down hills by myself usually, and then I went down there, and there were other people who wanted to skate down hills, and I just and I was like, oh man, it's so cool down here. Like, I'd love to move down here. And they were like, why don't you? And I was like, and then I went back to Auckland. I was like, why don't I?
Yeah.
And so, a lot of the people that I'd been, affiliated with, had, I don't know, there was a lot of partying and stuff, and and there was a lot of drugs that sort of infiltrated into Auckland in the 2000s, and like a lot of meth, and so a lot of people kind of went downhill, and I drank a lot, and I had to get out of Auckland. I just felt like I needed to get away because it wasn't healthy. And so I moved to Dunedin. I just packed up and crated up my dog, and we flew to Dunedin. And that was when I sort of, I don't know, like I've spent a lot of time hanging out. There's a building called the Dowling Street Staircase in Dunedin, and it's this sort of strange brutalist building that serves no other purpose than it's a staircase that comes down from the cliff. I think it was originally like the rock used to go right down through George Street, and the prisoners had to hammer it away.
Mm-hmm.
And then they built this sort of big concrete staircase. And so I think that was when I fell in love with that piece.
And it feels like some of the work you've done has responded to that.
Yeah, all that, and a lot of the old houses down there, there's I can't remember what it's called. There's an old house. You can go in there, do tours of it and stuff. But I started adapting the shapes from the buildings and stuff into my work even more. And also and logos and symbols and stuff. And and it was sort of the internet was sort of kicking in. I remember watching this. It was like a TED talk, and this guy was talking about magical symbols, sigils, and talking about writing down affirmations and then taking the letters and combining them together into a symbol. And it was like and you put it on your door and it's like good luck or something. So so I sort of started thinking about the letters and my name as symbols of like like magical symbols. I don't necessarily believe in it, but I just thought it was a cool concept.
Yeah, and that also comes through into your work now, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And
what year was that, Levi?
That would have been 2000. I moved there in like it was like Christmas. Boxing Day 2009.
Okay.
So just before 2010. And and then I was in Dunedin for 2 years, and I actually got, because I'd put out a hill bombing video. I basically skated down. Oh God, so many stories. It's so long.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But my friend Joe Griffin, who's an amazing photographer, before I moved to Dunedin, he wanted to document me skating down all the hills in Auckland because I'd started getting quite full on. And so we did this video. He was at Elam, and he did his end of Elam assignment. He took these photos of me, like portraits of me, and he had like his grandfather who was almost dying. And it was, I think his concept was sort of like the concept of death and someone who is like at the end of their life and is going to die, and someone who's young but takes
risking
huge
their life.
risk.
Yeah.
And
you're sort of on the edge of death potentially, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So we filmed all these like crazy hill bombs, and it kind of pushed me to like skate down Liverpool Street, which was the steep street that runs parallel to Queen Street. And so we filmed all that, and so he had that like playing. So I didn't go to art school, but me skateboarding down hills was on a big screen in Elam. So
how amazing!
And big photos, life-size photos of me and my dog, and
so nice for you to have those images.
Yeah,
from that time,
yeah, totally. And that kind of went semi-viral. Like it got, I don't know, like 180,000 views or something. It got picked up by Hypebeast, like a real trendy website, posted it. And then it was on Thrasher magazine in America. Like they posted it, and they had a hill bombing competition, video competition. I was kind of well known for skating down hills because, like, if you caught a bus up Queen Street, then you probably would have seen me skate past at rush hour. And so because of that video, when I was contacted by this woman Charlotte who was doing 2020, and she wanted to do a story about me, about my hill skating, and my art, and also about my genetic condition, and that they sort of. It ended up they really wanted to go into this sort of like bullying thing, and but it was quite a cool story, like and so like they sort of filmed me in my studio with these a room in the house, like these big paintings, and I also I got all this paint donated by Resine because I was like painting at the skate park and like kind of like like doing pieces at the skate park and over all the tagging and stuff. And so I got like 100 liters of grey paint and a whole lot of other paint. And there was like this big in the Leith River, and it was amazing. Like it was like there were quite a few graffiti artists that come out of Dunedin, but they all kind of move away. And so it was like everyone had gone, and it was just a little bit sort of like ghost town, like so. And there were just so many walls, and I was like, wow, like this place is just amazing. I've got like so many places I can paint.
Blank canvas. Yeah,
and so I painted like 50 meters of a concrete wall in the Leith River underneath it's like a tunnel underneath the botanical gardens, and I painted it grey, and like I went down there just on and off for 6 months and just painted this big grey, just piece after piece of my name with these symbols and stuff.
And that was
that
with
I've come up
quite
with.
a fine line black over the grey, is that the one?
Yeah. Well, I actually, because I was kind of like working it out, and I still had these stupid rules in my head where I was like, you're not allowed to use masking tape, like that's cheating. So I was like, I painted the whole wall grey, and it was so like old concrete, and it just soaked it up. So it took a long time. I think I had to do 2 coats, and then I just started doing like the outlines with spray paint, and then I was cutting it back over the top on both sides of each line with a brush. And
Wow.
it was like so time consuming, but because if I did that in Auckland, I'd start it one day and then come down and someone would have gone over it.
Really?
But like, because there was just nothing happening there, it was like I worked on that for 6 months and just sort of, and it was right through the middle of winter. So I'd go down there and have to wear like 5 t-shirts, 2 hoodies and like gloves and,
And was that wasn't a paid job?
No. It was,
So devoted, really, weren't you?
yeah. And it was like, yeah, it was just, I don't know, just on a mission to do what I wanted to do.
And you're enjoying that large scale component.
Yeah, I mean, I love going big, and so they contacted me about doing the 2020 thing, and I said, well, I've got this wall that I'm painting that I'll finish. Like, it kind of actually put a deadline for me to finish it, and so they came down and they filmed me skating down hills and everything, and then I decided to have an exhibition in the tunnel. So it was called the Secret Gutter Expose.
That's so cool. Love that.
So everyone met at this cool little bar, this little alleyway bar called Movery. And so everyone met there and no one knew we were going. And so then they followed me and we walked and it was kind of like they had to climb down this kind of bank wall thing and try not to fall in the river. And I had made all these big torches, like flaming torches, and bought like, I know, about 20 LED torches as well. And so like I had like an exhibition in the river tunnel.
That is so cool.
It was super cool. And they filmed that for the 2020 thing.
Wow. And that was quite smart. I mean, it sounds like you were quite entrepreneurial in a way. You were thinking about how you can combine these different talents that you had and get the word out.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of fell into place though. Like it was like I was just doing it and I've never really had a plan. Like you just sort of do what you love and what you want to do. And so they filmed that and I did like I worked a lot with I was really into trying to work with the councils and the development of skate parks and like the future of, and so in Dunedin it was quite cool. There was a guy called Mike Lafiso at the council, and so I worked with him through the Craig Strong at the skate park pavement down there, and we did like an event where we built all these ramps, and I like painted them all grey because at the same time like Auckland had been like painted grey, and I stenciled on every ramp, grey is the new street art, because like, it's like Auckland was just in love with the colour grey. And so I was like, okay, well, if grey is what you want, grey is what you get. And so, I was like, if I do graffiti in grey, will you still paint it off? Will you have to paint it another colour? Or
yeah, that's so interesting.
And so, so everything, all those ramps were grey, and except for one ramp, which I painted this big sort of mask face on, which was kind of cool. And that was the first time I'd sort of painted a big face. But yeah, I mean, I had such a good time down there, and I had like this. Sam had this MC Escher book, and I'd always loved MC Escher, and I went back into MC Escher, and I started exploring his repetitive patterns and like trying to decode them, because there was enough in the book to sort of show you how he did it, and
which does tie in with the way you're approaching your name and what you were doing with that. It's almost like fragmenting shapes.
Yeah, totally. So there was so many little bits and pieces. Like I often forget about every little thing, that, and it's like you're just studying. Yeah,
that was your university.
Yeah, the school of life.
And you can see how all of that you did in your life has contributed so much to the practice you have today.
Yeah, absolutely, and even more so, like, I mean, because and then obviously, like, I got famous for the meme, which just happened by accident, and the Nek Minute meme, for those people that don't know, I'm internationally known. The Prime Minister talks about me on TV in Australia and stuff. It's like, yeah,
that was a big moment, wasn't it? In a way, for a sort of New Zealand society. I mean, it's quite a moment that everybody connects to, or it's a meme that everybody connects to.
Yeah, it's especially at that time, it was very new.
I wonder why it had so much impact.
It was just the right thing at the right time. I don't know. It was just another one of those things where it just happened.
Yeah,
and it kind of worked perfectly for me in that, because I'd already done the 2020 documentary, and that was on Vimeo. So when people thought that I was just some waster or something from a trailer park or whatever, like, it was like people were like posting links to that video of my hill bombing, of my art, of my and yeah, like who I am. So and also about and it talked about being bullied for looking different, and which the meme was almost like a direct example of that, because the abuse and stuff was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
But
and that must have been, I mean, it's such an interesting moment in your life, I guess, because it was very positive for you in a way. It helped you to become well known, which is probably helping you as an artist, possibly. But then it had such a negative side as well.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that it did for me was it gave me income, and like to have more time and materials to keep painting and keep evolving. It didn't feel like people wanted to let me be more than the funny looking guy off the meme. It felt like there was a lot of that sort of like, oh no, you just stay there. Like, you just stay there. Like, no, we don't really want to know about your art. We don't really want to know about,
Which must have been really tough.
Yeah, I mean, at times. But I mean, I'd never been recognized for anything before anyway. So it was like, for me, it was just like, okay, I'm going to see if I can get money, how much money I can get out of this. Like, how is this going to go viral in America? Which would have been, like that, I might have a house then, but it didn't sort of, so I did some stand-up comedy. Because I'd done TV and emceed skate comps and like my whole teens and everything into my 20s, and it was like, I was like, okay, well, I know how to do this, because I'd wanted to do TV and stuff. There's so many things that I've done or wanted to do, like I've always envied people who just have one thing that they are really good at and they do it and they just do it really well. I've always been like all over the show. Like, oh, I love this, I love this, I love this, I love this,
But the great thing about that is it's probably, as you get older, it's probably all of those things that you've experienced are coming together and forming the person you are and the artist you are.
Yeah.
And probably you would never have been that interested, especially when you were younger, at just having one thing that you honed your skills in.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I kind of, I did a bunch of TV and I moved back to Auckland because my mum was kind of starting to get like a cognitive brain deterioration, and so I wanted to be near her, and I was like flying up to Auckland every week to do TV and interviews and like comedy, and
wow.
So I came back and and was doing that, and then I've always been involved in like sort of helping people learn to skate, and there wasn't really anyone doing like teaching kids to skate. So when I came back to Auckland, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a skate school. So I started doing that on the side because I was like sort of doing TV and ads. And so I did a skate school, worked for Youth Town, and so had like an after school program. Did that for a bit, and then but I just found it very hard, like being the Nek Minute guy, and kids just kind of expecting me to be like this character that they'd seen on TV, and also like I was more into skating hills than doing board flippy tricks, because I'm like, I'm kind of like I was getting old, getting older, and also my friend Simon Thorpe started like the Young Gun Skate School around the same time, and so when the funding ran out for that skate program, I was like, your skate school's like, you're younger, you're totally like, that's his thing, his one thing. And I was like, I'm not going to try and compete. So I'd had enough of just, kids are so hard.
Yeah, kids are hard.
Like just the small wins and the massive like losses, and but yeah, so I was like, okay, the TV stuff wasn't happening. It felt like every time that they wanted me to do something for TV, it was a little bit more degrading than the time before, or
that's awful.
And it was like, and I wanted to do like some other comedy stuff, and I also realized how hard acting is. I kind of like, it's, because I thought, I want to get into acting, and then I did a few little things, and it's very hard. The comedians were always like kind of taking the piss out of people or things, and I don't know. I was like, I think like I've kind of gone through my life trying things that I thought would be fun and then eliminating them. Skate school eliminated, comedy eliminated, and then I just was like, I just want to have a steady income and routine, and so I went back to landscaping, and so and I was also I did an exhibition on Cross Street, Timepiece, which was I'd basically condensed what were the paintings before from my exhibition Willful Damage in Dunedin at the Nun Gallery. People found it hard, like a really long, big painting, and logistically when I try and move them or anything, I was like, that was really not good. So I condensed basically my 4 letters down to 1 letter, or like one form, which was the sigil, the 1 letter that had all 4 letters in it. And so I did Timepiece. I made the rule of overlaying the 4 letters and interlocking them, and then I did that heaps, and then I was like, okay, now I'm going to let go. And because I'd done so many forms and shapes and interlocking shapes, I just started sort of freestyling shapes and things, and I'd still like the idea of like masks and faces, and so I discovered proper downhill skateboarding, not just riding down a steep hill on a normal street board. And so I'd gotten into like longer boards and going down like windy mountain roads and stuff, which and you have to wear like a full face helmet, and just the whole concept of your head. I think like and protecting your head and how important your head is. And so I did like I started doing designs with like a sort of helmet shape, and there's like and I discovered this whole world of like helmets as well. Like there's like all the Aero helmets, like all the different shapes, and like because downhill skateboarding adapted Aero helmets from skiing and stuff, and they have like crazy like Darth Vader sort of shapes. And so so I did the timepiece exhibition, which were square paintings, and I did that with the well-known legendary skateboarder from the 80s, Lee Ralph, who's also a woodcarver. And so he did all these beautiful po that were, his stuff's kind of like less traditional and a little bit more abstract, and a lot of his work's quite asymmetrical, and he's still, I mean, he's an unsung sort of humble person of the art sculpture world that's never sort of being recognized outside of the skate world. And I did a few little exhibitions with him and Jimmy Kuraturis, who does amazing paintings. So I went back to landscaping and ended up, I kind of just wanted some money, and I ended up doing that for 5 years, and through doing that, we're doing a lot of concrete formwork, and so I was like stripping formwork off concrete stairs and watching it being built and seeing how it fit together and came apart. And so I decided to start taking leftover plywood and stuff home, and started cutting it up, and I made these cubes, like concrete cubes that were about knee height, with my designs around the outside. And so I sort of made them, and made a lot of mistakes, and then was looking online, and discovered the artist, from a Canadian artist, David Umimoto, who's a concrete sculptor, and he does brutalist works and sort of architectural, a lot of them, and I saw he'd left like a sort of, there was like an interview, and it had some photos of his molds, and that was when I was sort of like, oh wow, like, because I was making big things like landscape style formwork, and then when I saw that he was using foam and rubber molds and rubber components and molds, it really just sort of opened up my mind to making smaller works. And so I just started experimenting and making some small things, and managed to get like a kind of a range together. And at the same time, I sort of started exploring away from just like the lettering in my forms and shapes, and started making things like vents, like brutalist vents, and like a urn, like urns and sort of vases, and stuff out of concrete, and then I had a show with Olivia Leiter when she still had the space in Onehunga, and I did a show called Buffable, which buff is like when they remove graffiti, so it's like to make it in concrete. It kind of felt like it was you couldn't buff it, you know?
Yeah, and more permanent.
Yeah, more permanent. And I'd sort of had part of my concept of doing paintings on canvas and stuff was the fact that they were more permanent, because all the work that I'd done over the years, over like 20 years or something, was all gone, you know?
Yeah.
And it just felt like a bit of a stalemate, you know?
So were you, when you started doing that, were you thinking, okay, I've done a lot of making over the years, and now I want to have an art practice that has permanence and start showing and really build your life as an artist with a full-time practice?
Yeah, totally. And it was very daunting. I just felt like I did 2 painting exhibitions and I sold like one thing, or like, you know, maybe a couple of paintings, you know, like I just found it like not very welcoming. I didn't feel like I could be recognized, especially for the style of work that I was doing.
And taken seriously?
Yeah, well, I just don't think that a lot of people understood it. And as soon as you mentioned the word graffiti, it was kind of like, oh no, we can't stand it. Like,
yeah,
you know, it doesn't mean anything. You know, it doesn't. And so doing that first exhibition with Olivia, and I sold like half my work, and I was like, oh, wow.
That's
like,
great.
Okay.
That's so good.
And so I kept going, kept working, and then I was approached by JKW Interiors to do the installation for Sylvia Park, where I did like 3 walls of like a concrete tile relief.
Oh wow.
And so I cut down to 3 days a week landscaping, and it was very sensible. And I wasn't drinking or anything, so I managed to save like a bit of money and from just working, you know. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And so I jumped and started doing it full time.
Really? What year was that?
That would have been 2019.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so good. And just kind of jumping off the cliff, but you must have just felt like it was the right time.
Well, I knew that it's really hard to find landscapers because no one wants to do it because it's really hard work. And so I knew that I was like, what's the risk? I can always landscape again, you know, like there was no. And I was just working out of a double garage. I did like around the same time, like my friend Simon Lewis Woods was his practice had expanded and he'd moved into like a proper warehouse space, and so I went and worked. I worked out of his place for a little bit, and when I was making my first rubber molds, he was like, "Oh, before you put concrete in those, why don't you put some wax in them, and I'll show you how to cast glass." And I was like, "Okay, then." Like, and so yeah, like I cast a few pieces, and then found it like glass is very hard. It's very, you know, there's a lot more steps in concrete, and so I did that, and people liked them, they sold, and then people sort of asked for more, and so I kept doing little runs of glass here and there as well as the concrete, and everything just really kept evolving.
Yeah, and then you tried bronze.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once you're making waxes, you know, for glass, it's like
you might as well fill it with. It was
bronze. Like, well, you can just take that to the foundry.
Yeah,
and I really like that because I didn't have to do it. Because I do everything myself. Like everything that I make like I touch it from concept to packing it and sending it. You know, like for anyone who's bought my work, it's 100% me, except for the bronze and aluminium, which is done at a foundry, but I do the patinas myself. Like I've learned how to do that as well. So
that's amazing. And can you describe those works? I mean, there are sort of different series, aren't there, of the same sort of idea. But can you describe for someone who's never seen your work what it's like? That's a big question.
It is a very big question, and I always struggle with explaining my art. I feel like this podcast and the whole story of, it's like, how do you condense your whole life into, this is what my art is? Like, yeah,
exactly.
So, but yeah, I mean, I do a sort of variation of stuff. In lockdown, I took my paintings and I extruded them. I pulled them out, and that was actually how I worked out how to do how to do sculpture. I took sculpture in 7th form and I failed because I didn't know what to make. I didn't have any idea of forms. I sort of thought of sculpture as like sort of
people
finding junk from the tip and welding it together or tying it together or something, like,
yeah.
But yeah, so
and sculpture was just another way for you to communicate and to kind of keep evolving those designs that you really had a long time ago.
Yeah. So basically I started I did the cubes, which had the lettering, which was like the abstract sort of, my 4 letters of my name around a cube, which was convenient, that 4-sided.
Yeah.
And then so then I started doing the paintings, and I just started pulling them out into 3-dimensional objects, because I'd always thought, although I hadn't drawn them in 3D, whenever I was layering up the paint and the colors, I always thought of them as 3D layers that interlocked and interwove. So I just started pulling them out, and it was like 3-dimensional objects were so much easier when I was like breaking them down into slices.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so I did that, and then I think like doing the vents, and then I started like paying so much more. I'd always loved architecture, but I started paying like, I think like also with the introduction of Instagram, and there were like all these like brutalist accounts, and it was like I started absorbing like every, like I discovered Carlos Scarpa and Corbusier, and like, like so many amazing architects, and started taking little bits of what they'd done and applying it. And then I listened to a talk on YouTube with the sculptor, I forget his name, talking about sculptures with holes in them. It was just a whole talk about holes and sculptures, and everything that I'd been doing was very solid, and I hadn't really cut into it. Like I did like after the Solvs, which Solv is like, it was my solution to the problem, which is art. So I called it a Solv.
And that's a whole series, a whole big collection, isn't it?
Yeah. Like
it's numbered.
It's just a Solv. I just thought it was a good thing to name a design. So yeah. And then, then I started like, really cutting into things and, cutting right through them. And because the problem with concrete is the bigger I went, the heavier it got. And because it was so solid, and then I was like, okay, so I started cutting into it, and then that made it lighter, but it also made it weaker. So then I started adding in little pieces of supports and started thinking about how I could strengthen and like, putting and they created all this interest and all this and which is like and it was the essence of brutalism, because brutalism is a building. Like, people often don't know what the meaning of brutalism is. Like, they think that it's like anything that's concrete, that's blocky, and but it actually means a building that has no facade, that you can see the structure and the strength. And so then I was like, something clicked, and I was like, oh wow, like I just kind of worked it out.
Yeah, it makes sense for your work, doesn't it? And so those holes, creating that negative space within your sculptures, are they Is that done afterwards? That's not part of the mold.
Oh no, that's all molded in. So
That's
everything.
part of the mold.
That's what I love about sculpture and casting. Like I don't carve, I don't sculpt, so much. It's like everything is cast. And I love the fact that you cast something and you take it out of the mold and it's finished. Like, I mean, you might patina it or, tidy it up. But,
polish it.
But there's no, you could paint it or you could do anything. But I just like the fact that that's it.
You keep it quite raw, don't you?
Yeah, and like, because otherwise I'll never know when to stop.
Yeah.
And, and so... I don't know, and I was like, I don't know, and then I'd seen like a lot of Guy Nahn's work around, like I always loved the sculpture on the front of Art Space, which was the post office, and and like I said, like the Aotea Square Monument,
It's so interesting that your sculptures have so much reference to the urban environment, which is where you've grown up, and just with things like kind of stair forms and spaces, like almost like corridors or spaces between buildings, or it just feels to me so much a sort of product of the life that you've led.
Yeah.
Which is incredible to have that in a way. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I originally, for years, like from, 15 years ago or something, or longer, I had wanted to build sculptures mainly for the intention that they would be used for skateboarding. And then like I helped build a skate park in Owaraka, and just laboring like in 2008. And I sort of just, I got really put off by the politics of the skate park building industry, and also the way that skaters respond to the production of skate parks and art within skate parks. Oh, why did you spend money doing art? You should have built a handrail and some stairs and a bowl, or and one person wants a bowl, one person wants
yeah.
And so it sort of put me off. It was like I don't want people to be complaining that money or funding was wasted on art,
yeah,
rather than skate parks, because so little had been put into it. But yeah, so I don't know, it was kind of nice to free myself from that as well and just make things that didn't have to be skatable. And,
that wasn't part of the consideration.
But I still imagine them big. Like, I like my tiles, which I came up with in lockdown when I had a lot of time on my hands, and I started making tiles and putting them up around the streets. But when I'd look at the tile, like it looked like a tiny little landscape, or a little skate park, or and so I started thinking, and so even all my sculptures, I sort of imagine and when I do something, the more I sort of started thinking of them in architectural forms, and each piece that comes outcrop is like a veranda, or
yeah, I know what you mean. You can totally see that.
And so
those tiles are very cool, and I love that one there where you're combining shapes across a long length across a wall.
Yeah, well, those were actually the outlines that I did on the wall in Dunedin in the river.
Oh, really?
So those are all outlines that, because it got destroyed, I thought it was fitting that I redid them in concrete so that they would be permanent.
And how do you do those tiles? Is that one big mold, or is it lots of pieces stuck together?
The Sylvia Park one?
This one.
Oh no, that's all poured in one go. That was massive. Like,
is it?
We had to get I had to get help like getting these big MDF molds that were like monstrosities.
Do you use CNC cutting to get the molds made?
If I'm going big, like I've done 3 big plywood sculptures, and so I have to break it all down into panels, and then I'll get them CNC cut because it's
Makes sense.
It makes sense, and it's really nice when everything just kind of fits together.
Yeah, it's perfect.
But yeah.
And you do that do you draw on the computer or hand?
Yeah. Well, I because I learned Illustrator through designing graphics and stuff for skateboard graphics and all that. I have like carried that over, so I sort of have used that in my doing drawings for paintings and stuff. And then when I first started doing the concrete, I wasn't using any 3D programs. I was just making cardboard models and imagining the molds backwards, like imagining things. You'd have to do it all backwards. And, yeah. So I did that, like even for the Brutal Monument series, and the Solvs were all done without any 3D programs. And then when I started doing the false idols, which is when I really started cutting into things. Also in the false idols, I kind of removed any curves because it was mostly because I didn't really know how to do them in SketchUp. So it was that thing again, like though, of simplifying.
Yeah.
And then you simplify and then you make it more complicated. So yeah, I've been using SketchUp for for a few years now. And that has just I mean I'd love to spend a lot more time on it and learn, but it's very hard because you use it and then I go and make stuff physically and then go back to it, and it can be hard to remember it because you're not using it over and over again. But
yeah. And those false idols, I mean, with those spaces and just the different shapes within those sculptures are it's such a lovely play with light and shadow and negative space and, all those beautiful things. And that, I just love that, the solidness of the concrete and then how that can work with the gentleness of light.
Yeah.
It's such a lovely combination. And they're so unique.
Well, it's been a very fine line because like growing up in New Zealand, I've always had Māori art and, and stuff there, which we were, brought up on. But because I'm not Māori, I have found that it's not been something that I can do. And I've loved, and I've always loved like Aztec art and I always used to look through books of that stuff. And when I was coming up with designs for graphics and all sorts of cultural art, and I think and I feel like there's so many parallels between all the different sorts. Like it's all kind of connected by one thing, which is that we are kind of all one culture, really, with like the human race.
Yeah, one species.
Yeah, and so and part of the false idols thing was my uncle wanted me to design a headstone for my grandparents' grave, and they're Catholics, so I was sort of working on crucifixes and stuff, and sort of brutalist, and I was looking at like brutalist churches and things overseas. But it also made me think, well, what do you have as your headstone if you're not religious? And so the idols were really sort of like ideas for gods or powers that don't exist, and like a tribute to them, or and it sort of allowed me to bring figures, and some of them look like infrastructure, and some of them have more like sort of human forms.
Yes, yeah.
I always refer to parts of them as being collarbones or necks, or
yeah, they definitely do feel, some of them do feel like idols or like actual heads or bodies or parts of bodies, but also back to that helmet idea.
Well, the helmet as well, and like I've got a new one that's actually got like 3 vents in the front of it, which is the same. It's my Aero helmet that I wear for downhill has the 3, and so I sort of wanted to reference that.
And you do play with scale. You have made some quite large sculptures, and some of them out of wood, for places like the Kaipara Sculpture Gardens and different sculpture shows. So, and then you've also done really quite small cubes and other amazing things which look incredible. I love that photo in your Instagram where somebody's bought one of the small cubes and they've put it with work that looks almost antique.
Yeah.
On a sort of quite an antique-y looking table, side like hall table. And it's so kind of minimal and hard and modern, but then it just goes so beautifully with something that's actually really old as well. So it's like you're sort of, you've created something that still works with all sorts of different art movements. And I love the way that you have those small pieces, but then you also work really quite large. Where do you think you're going to go with scale?
I mean, the goal has always been to go big, but you're just limited by. I find it hard to let go of the making, and so like I'm not an artist who will like get people to fabricate things for me. But I would like to work. I've always I work alone, like a lot. And even when I was doing graffiti, a lot of the time I ended up alone, like working alone. And so yeah, I mean, I always get stoked when I get to work with other people, and I feel like I'm still learning, to do that. But because I'd love to make Corten steel or like steel works or powder coated steel. Like, the plywood sculptures are just really, they were like I didn't know how to go big. So I was like, well, I'm just going to make these big plywood sculptures. They won't last, but at least people can see what my stuff looks like at that scale.
Yeah. And you can play with scale without the big expense.
Yeah, totally. And the projects that came up weren't permanent projects. And I just figured that the more that people see my work in that size, the more they're going to be like, they're going to come to me and want to build big ones. And that will give me the opportunity to work with engineers and construction and stuff.
City planners, maybe.
Yeah. So I just like I said, I've never had a plan, so I just keep doing
what you love,
what I love, and what I want to do next, rather than and eliminate things that I don't want to do. Yeah,
and sometimes that's sort of trial and error, isn't it? Sometimes you might try something and you think, actually, that's not what I want to do.
It's not what I perceive. Because you imagine things in your head and you think, it's like people imagine like, oh yeah, I want to have a house in the country and I want to have all this stuff, and then animals, and then they end up by themselves in the country and they've got no friends and
they miss the city
and they hate having to clean up animal shit. And,
exactly.
Like it's like you don't know what you want. You have an idea in your head, a romantic idea of what you think you want in the future, and that often gets crushed.
Yeah. And it feels like you are quite experimental with materials. As you said, you want to try materials that you haven't touched on yet. And I guess if you're going big, you could work in parts and kind of assemble, couldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. It's and that's what I do really enjoy, problem solving. Like I just did 2 stacks of cubes for the Riverhaven Sculpture Gardens in Clevedon, and like Guy and Katie came to me and said, we've got these big concrete pillars on these, it's like some weird leftover infrastructure from a motorway or something, and they were like, can we build some concrete around these pillars? And so I had to sort of come up with a way that we could do it that wasn't going to, because with concrete, like the weight of pouring concrete is just needs so much bracing, and there's so much there's cost and potential for error. And so I sort of came up with the idea to do them in GRC concrete so that they'd just be like a shell. And because I'd done stacks of cubes, like for a few customers, and so so we built those, and I'm enjoying problem solving, like to put art in a place and like filling a brief, which in the past briefs have always been problematic for me.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I've just gotten better at what I do and more comfortable in what I do. I know, so I sort of feel like I've arrived a lot more.
Yeah.
Like I think when like I said, like that first exhibition of sculptures and selling a whole bunch of stuff, it was like, oh, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like this is what I'm going to do now. Like,
yeah. And isn't that cool that, you know, when you think about that moment where you think, yes, I'm ready, this is affirming, I'm ready to go, compared to your 48% at school, you know, where you felt good about what you were doing and then you had that rejection.
Yeah.
And it's like you've just, you know, evolved into creating something that's so successful where you feel you've found your place, you've found your art form.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's I feel like I'm really lucky. Like I just feel like I'm really lucky to be to have made it here because you know, like I mean a lot of me and my friends who like, you know, who now are doing well in art were the ones that everyone thought would be dead by the time we were 30, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like
but you are amazing. I mean the skating that you do is so freaky to watch. I mean, you've just got this love of speed, obviously.
Yeah.
And you enjoy taking risks to a point.
Yeah, yeah. And it all feels sort of connected. I don't know, like just the way that you skate down a hill, the way you traverse down a slope is the same way that water flows down a sculpture. You know, it finds the easiest way.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's something else that I really loved when I started making sculptures and then leaving them outside in the rain and watching the way that the water flowed down them. And so I haven't done a water feature yet, but I've played around a little bit with some smaller maquettes of water features, and because it is. And then I was like, oh, wow, gravity, like skateboarding down hills, gravity, water flowing down sculptures, gravity, like it. I just, every time I find another connection, you know, like even like I found like when I started making molds and stuff, I was like working with plywood, urethane, concrete, and then aluminium. And I was like, oh, what's my skateboard made out of? You know, and what do I ride on? It was like plywood, urethane.
Yeah.
Like
so many connections.
Yeah.
Isn't there? It's quite incredible. Yeah. And are you planning on skating for as long as you possibly can?
Yeah, I mean, I'll always skate at some level. And I mean, I already don't spend as much time at skate parks trying to do tricks over and over again. And, you know, like my joints are just, they're not fast enough. That's why I love downhill, because it's more like less like jumping off 50 million times trying a trick and more like
less impact,
flowing down a hill and listening to music and, you know, like
but you must just have, I mean, I've watched a few of the videos, like you going down Ruapehu. That was quite recent, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, we revisited Ruapehu this year.
And that's just, you must just have the most incredible sense of balance.
Yeah, I don't think you have any choice. It's like when there is no try. You either do or you don't, you know? And I think for someone who has bad attention, like ADD or, you know, I mean, when you're in that situation, you concentrate because and
have to have focus.
You're totally focused, and in that focus, you also stop thinking. The internal dialogue stops, and you're meditating. So I mean, like, I've tried to meditate, and I cannot. And they're like, empty your mind. And I'm like, whatever, like, oh, how shall I empty my mind? I could do it this way, or I could do it that way. Or what about, look at that tree out there. That's pretty, like.
Yeah. So I guess that's in a way your sort of mindful meditation is when you're going down those hills.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also, like, after becoming famous or whatever for being a meme, I found it increasingly harder to find that meditation at a skate park or when I'm surrounded by kids who are asking you questions and, and I think, and after teaching kids to skateboard and, like just being able to, just escape all that.
Yeah.
And, and a lot of it's like being alone in the city and, and I've been going to San Francisco or California and mostly San Francisco because I just love it. I've always loved the buildings there and the houses and the hills and so I just go there and it's like I'm just alone in the streets with all the buildings and it's great.
And do you feel like that when you're making art?
Yeah, I do. And I work alone in my warehouse. I've got like a warehouse now, a warehouse studio, and I'm kind of like there in this big space by myself with the dog, like every day. And I think, oh, maybe I should like rent out this bit there, or and I'm like, oh, but that might kill my buzz.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's so good. It's amazing. You're such an inspiration. I really just have so much respect for what you've been through and where you've got to. It's incredible. Yeah.
Thank you.
And how do you find the commercial world of art and working with galleries and that kind of thing now?
It's cool. Like after I did my first show and I did like my first sort of small sculptures and stuff, I sort of approached a few galleries, like made up like a PDF and didn't get a response or they weren't interested and I sort of felt like there was a bit of sort of like the Nek Minute guy thinks he's an artist now, like as if I'd sort of like just suddenly decided I was going to be an artist, like I hadn't been doing it my whole life. And so it was interesting, but then the beautiful thing was that through Instagram and like just posting photos of my work, I started like, especially before the algorithms got really bad, I started getting followers and then a gallery like, Frame Workshop in Herne Bay like approached me and then Simon sort of, spoke to a few galleries like ZU Gallery and Taupo and they commissioned a few concrete planters and
you were with Muse Art Gallery now as well?
Yeah, Muse, like Stephen Robinson put me on to K and they got a whole bunch of idols and they moved and that was great and
you've shown in Sydney, haven't you?
Yeah, so Becca Minty, Mr. Minty's gallery approached me and so I've sort of been selling a bit of stuff there, still trying to find somewhere in Melbourne. I spent so much time in Melbourne, I find it kind of interesting that I haven't found a place there yet.
I'm sure you will though.
I'm sure. Well, there's actually the Front Room Gallery in Melbourne sell my the wooden editions. Like, well, that's the other thing that happened was before I've sort of been recognised by New Zealand galleries through the internet, like Modern Shapes Gallery started following me and from Belgium, and Michael when I posted the first photo of the false idol, he like messaged me and said, "I love these. Like,
Really?
I want to speak to you about a project that we're doing." And then he told me about the wooden editions that they were doing. You know, it's sort of like selling prints, but sculptures.
Yeah.
And I'd actually, because I'd seen like the plastic toys, like, you know, the bear bricks and the Cause dolls and stuff, and I thought, wow, like my sculptures would be really cool in that format, like because especially the idols, like they are like figures, but I was like, ooh, plastic, and so I was sort of like, but I'd sort of put that in my head, like that I wanted to make like toys or editions, and then it was so crazy that, you know, and then he came back to me and said the project's like we want to do wooden editions of your work, and with alongside David Umimoto, who's like the master,
Wow,
and a handful of other like really cool sculptors, and it's like Modern Shapes Gallery is great because they are one of the few galleries that just really specialize in modern sculpture. And so I was completely honored. And so Front Room Gallery in Melbourne are selling, they ordered a bunch of my sculptures, and so they've been at they sell them at the art fairs like Maison and Objet and Paris.
wow.
And so, yeah, it's like I love going through the list and seeing, you know, like, is it Casina Furniture in Japan ordered some of my stuff, and like, you know, like it's just amazing that because logistically trying to send concrete and heavy sculptures from New Zealand, we're so far away. It's like, it's just so cool that my work's selling overseas. So I really hope that, I really want to keep expanding outwards. And when I do my trips to last trip I went to San Francisco, I put up some tiles around the place and some of my favorite brutalist skate spots. And now I see videos on Instagram of people skating at the spot, and I can see my tile in the background of the shot.
Which really sort of harks back to the graffiti days, doesn't it? Where you're kind of leaving your mark.
Yeah. It's
which is very cool.
Well, the idea was always like kind of, I wanted, when I started doing the graffiti and changing it to my own style, which was more modern and more architectural. When I did the tiles, it was like, oh wow, these are kind of like little tags, but they're disguised. And so it's sort of like,
they're more accepted because they're not spray paint.
Yeah, and to me, it's a natural thing. Like how a creature evolves spikes or to survive, and so, or they start, you know, like a chameleon will camouflage itself. So it felt like the tiles were sort of like camouflaged as little baby architecture.
Yeah, and more acceptable from, you know, civilians possibly.
Yeah, totally. And then these sort of, and I love everything I've sort of done. And anytime you do public art, it's interactive. Like people interact with it. Even when you go to a gallery, by looking at something, you're kind of interacting with it. And so with the tiles, it was like people were interacting with it, and then someone would tag over the tile or next to it, and they'd come and paint the wall, and they'd paint over the wall and my tile. So then the tile had kind of been accepted, like, or it had become part of the wall, part of the building.
Yeah.
And it kind of hit it more. And so, yeah, and I mean, I put up some tiles in San Francisco like almost a year ago, and they're all still there because no one even over there knows what they are, or
where they've
and because
come
I
from.
often put them in spots where they look like they're a logo for utilities or ornamentation, that they survive.
Yeah.
Except for when people work out what they are and that they maybe are worth something, then they're getting removed. But even when people steal them, they go on a new journey.
That's
and
right.
then they go in someone's house, and then that person tells a story about the tile, and
the artwork lives on. Do you have any sort of identifying features so that people can track you down and find the artist?
No, I don't.
Might be good to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes the fun is that, like I had a guy from San Francisco track me down just recently who just put the image into Google search and it came up on Reddit.
Really?
And so he found me through there and then messaged me, and he's like on the Modern Architectural Protection Trust or something like this group in San Francisco. So and so now he started following me, and so it's just amazing, like hey, it's really great to approach a gallery and ask them to stock your work. But I mean, to me, to go somewhere and put something up and for them to get the joy of finding you,
and for people to engage on that level and making it quite accessible.
Yeah, totally. And there's no, I don't know, it's like deciphering a hieroglyph, or
I love that. And when you think about, what you've been talking about, it is also beautifully connected and intertwined. And, when you look back on your life, it must be a buzz for you to see all these connections and how it's almost being it's like your art practice now is a culmination of so many different aspects of your life, the skating and the graffiti and everything. And I feel like this is the beginning of, well, you're already on that road of huge success.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so. I mean, it would. I mean, at the moment, like obviously everyone's been, like the purse strings are tight, and it's been a big recession, and at the moment, it's sort of like everyone seems to be sort of treading water, and I took a lease on a warehouse like right at the start of this sort of crash, and but I'm just stoked that I've still been actually selling enough and still growing, and probably selling more than I've ever sold. Definitely like doubled, and but with more overheads. But I mean, I just, every day that I go to that space, and and for someone who's worked out of painting 3-meter wide paintings and a 1-meter gap at the end of my double bed in my bedroom, to working, like my first sculptures were made in a carport with no sides or no walls. Like to actually have like a warehouse space now and be able to just, anything I want to do I can do, and I can you can get something out and work on it, and you don't have to put it away and tidy up to get out the next thing and set it up, and you can actually work on a few things at once, and also like I've got a gallery space in there, which like like a sort of showroom, and
people can come and visit by appointment.
Yeah, totally. It's sort of it's sort of become a lot more of a workspace at the moment, just through winter and like I said, how quiet things have been. But I've got a whole lot of works that I've been working on for a bit now that are a bit more technical and elaborate. So, I mean, that's been the great thing about things being a little bit quiet, is it's given me a lot more time to experiment, and I've bought my own kiln, and so I'm starting to make larger glass works, and glass.
Well, it's so problematic, isn't it, potentially?
Oh yeah, and it's like I just and I kind of knew from the start. I was like, no, I don't want to get into glass. I just want to make concrete. It's like
But do you think you'll keep going with the glass?
Oh no, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think I'm through. I'm not through the worst of it, but I think like getting through like the first bit is the hardest, and even just going from making glass pieces that are under 2 kgs to doing my new ones that are over 5 kgs. And like, and speaking, like, there's been so many people who've helped me, like Simon Woods, Kate Rutecki, Luke Jacob, Matt Hall, Di Tocker, like I've been hassling her, and Layla Walters, and it's been super cool. They've all been like very helpful,
That's great.
Sometimes, people are a little bit guarded with some stuff, and like you have to sort of
Squeeze it out of them.
yeah. And it's like, and I think I used to look at glass and just see the form, and if it was quite simple, I'd be like, it's a bit boring or whatever. But now when I see glass and I see how much goes into it,
Yeah, the process.
and how much work, like when I see something that's really quite perfect and it doesn't have many air bubbles, or or the fade of the glass colors, like when there's a mixture, and like it's really quite admirable. Like,
yeah, now you understand the process. You have more respect for the artist, I guess.
yeah, absolutely, and I have more appreciation for the simplicity of it. And I think that my younger self probably wouldn't have listened to any old person. But then I thought, what I would have told myself is to learn more trades, learn more like about like instead of doing tech drawing and stuff, do metalwork, do woodwork, like learn to use machines, learn to learn physical, processes and stuff. Don't waste your time working jobs where you're washing dishes and stuff.
Yeah.
Although that does teach you things, but life skills. But like, I just think that there's so much. Like, I wish I knew more about metal and welding, and I've done like I've had a little session welding, and I wish I had learned more about it earlier.
But you still can learn now, I guess.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just sort of tapping into the artist community, isn't it, and learning new things, which does take time.
It does take time, and I think the after having a small sample of welding, I feel like you need a sort of partially outdoor space, and because it's going to get messy. Like you're going to be grinding dirty metal and
with fiery things.
Yeah, fiery things and breathing things in, and and then you got to protect your eyes.
It's a whole other thing, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would you find is the most challenging part of being an artist?
Surviving and being able to do it full time. But I also think that it's not about having a space, and it's not about having the time. You can have 2 full-time jobs, or a full-time job and a massive hobby, and paint in in your bedroom, or you can. It's just doing it, but at the same time, I think going full time, like, because I don't know of any artists. Well, I mean, I do know of artists that haven't made it, but a lot of people have found that when they went full time with their art, every time it'd be like you'd run out of money, and then something would come up, or like something came through, or you can have a part-time job, or like
sometimes when you jump off the cliff, that and really immerse yourself in something, that is when stuff can happen, because you're creating space for it.
Yeah. You have to often close one door for a door to open.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, it's but it is very hard. Like it is very hard supporting yourself, and especially I think now more than ever. And I also do feel like there's a lot of art out there. Like it's a lot easier for people to produce art. We've got so many machines and so many techniques and things where like people can sit at a computer and make art and with 3D printing and which is awesome. Like and now you've got like digital art as well. So but don't worry, AI is going to take all that out. So
oh my God, that's a whole other podcast episode. Yeah. And I think we all know the answer to this, but why are you making the kind of work you're making?
Because I love it. I love the way it looks. I love the way your mind plays with it.
It really feels like you're expressing your identity through your work so much. Yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, like, I mean, I just feel like I'm a blockhead, you know? I'm a brutal piece of architecture.
You're a brute. Such a brute. Yeah. And which artists inspire you or inform you in some way?
Well, there's been a huge amount of artists that have done that. But in sort of recent years, I think like like Murder from Melbourne, MERDA, and there was Puzzle and a whole lot of like graffiti artists, but then like MC Escher, like from back in the day, and German expressionists like Franz Marc, and August Macke and Kandinsky, and I was really big into that, and then just like a lot of the brutalists and the Spomenik, like Bogdanovich. You know what? That's the hardest thing about that I'm finding. Like I know like the names of like a million skateboarders, and then now I know like the names of like all these downhill skateboarders, and now it's like I know the names of all these artists, and then all these architects, and I'm trying to remember all the names of like all these New Zealand artists. I keep meeting people, and like I get and then gallerists, and like it's
overload.
It is overload. Like and I don't have the best memory because I just feel like I'm always off thinking about all these other things.
And do you actually have ADHD diagnosed?
I've never been diagnosed, but I don't think I would have made it through high school if I wasn't skateboarding. Like I think I would have probably ended up in trouble. It's sort of helped me concentrate. Yeah. And also I just think like, and all along the way, like when I was brought into Boom to design and stuff, like, you know, people have helped me so much all the way through. I think they see it in me that like that I struggle with some things, and they tend to help me. And like Shay O'Neill has been like a big help for me, like and sort of getting my works bigger and sculpture parks and at festivals, and so yeah, like I'll take this opportunity to thank like all the people who've helped me throughout the years, when they see my potential, but they see my sort of things that I struggle with.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a beautiful thing to say. And I'm sure that a part of that is the person who you are, and that is why people are wanting to support you and help you, so you can take some credit for that too. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So, okay, let's wrap up. You have got the record for the longest episode on the Creative Matters podcast. Yahoo! So, Levi, thank you very much. It's been such a thrill to meet you. It really has. It's so fascinating to hear your story and how you've evolved. And, it's a beautiful story. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I love your questions, and, it's been very easy. And I hope that it keeps going well. And, yeah, give Mandy lots of funding.